They are straight headed into that last turn. Total points on this open in round number 1 looks like they're going with Romer, Gessner, and Brooks. Gate drops down on our next rack of open. 7 and 8-year-old open. Caleb Avendano, Nash Williams, Jasper Brooks, Jackson Gessner, Collins Lil, Finn Lee. Out of that first turn, looks like it's going to be Finn Lee on the top spot, followed with Brooks in the 2. Avendano in the 3, Williams in the 4 spot, Lil in the 5, and Gessner rounding it out down that third straight. It's still Lee out under the number 1. Brooks is getting some pressure from Avendano on that number 2 spot as they come out of the turn into your last straight. It's going to be Finn Lee sitting in the number 1 spot. It's a battle on that number 2 right now. Looks like Avendano is going to take over the 2. Brooks, Williams, Lale, Gessner, following it up. Next rack of opens. It's going to be Harrison Vanoy, your 9-year-old expert, sitting out on the number 1 spot. Following it up is Kelly Jackson. Miles Williams rounding it out for you. Out of last turn, they're coming back at you to that stripe with Vanoy, Kelly, Williams. Our last rack of open drops in. It's a mixed up round here with Will Zistra, your 15-year-old expert on the number 1 spot. Shannon Polk following close. Zach Lale in the 3 and Mary Pat Meany mixing it up with these big guys. It's going to be all Will as he airs it out for you on this third straight. Polk, Lil, and Meany on this open rack right here. They're coming into that last straight. Looks like that's how we're going to round it on that round of open. Dropping into cruisers now. We've got Riley Richardson, Carson Gregory, and Doug Johnson. We've got 2 teenagers and a dad out here trying to mix it up. He's trying to stay right with those teenagers, giving them everything he's got. But right now it's going to be Riley sitting on the number 1, airing it out over that jump, coming into that third straight. Carson in the 2, Doug in the 3. He is giving it all he's got with these kiddos. Coming back to home, it's still going to go with Richardson, Gregory, and Johnson. Alrighty, we've got little bitties. These little bitty kiddos, these big old bikes out here coming out of this first turn. It looks like Avendano takes an inside line. He's got pressure from both J.J. Johnson and Kyron Brooks. They both take him over from both sides. Right now they're going into turn number 2. Johnson's in the 1. Brooks takes the inside line. He takes over the number 1 spot coming out of turn number 2. So we've got the state 6 of Kyron Brooks. He's rocking that green plate, looking nice and proud. Jameson's giving him everything he's got. Noah Avendano in the 3. Theo Williams in the 4. Frankie Lee, she's battling out here on this beautiful pink and purple bike, rocking with these boys. Into that last straight, there you go, giving it all they've got, coming, pumping, pedaling. Brooks, Johnson, Avendano, Williams, Lee. Turning the page, it looks like I've got us a group of 6 and 7-year-old novices right now. Collins Lale's got the speed as he comes onto this second straight. It's going to be a battle. I see a look back from Gessner. Ellis is right there on his back wheel. Out of that second turn, good. Looks like Lale's trying to pull away from the lead as far as he can away from these other 2, but they are working with each other, trying to catch him back up. Right now, it's still going to be Lale on the 1, Gessner on the 2, Williams on the 3, but she's right on Gessner as they come into that last turn. It's look like it's going to be Lale, Gessner, Williams. Turning the page, I see a battle between. Don't ever stop working all the way to that line, guys. But moving on to 8-year-old novices. Nash Williams, Jackson Hunter, Caden Sink, Jackson Gessner. Out of turn number 2. It's going with Nash Williams, still doing it on the broken arm. He's got those gold wheels rocking right now. Jackson Hunter sitting in the number 2. He's got some pressure coming from Sink. We've got a parent checking on our down rider, Jackson. Hunter Jackson took that fall. And I've got 9-year-old novices coming at me. James Foster, Renee Johnson, Cambry Brooks, Miles Williams. Coming back at you to that finish line, it's going to be Foster on the 1, Johnson on the 2, Brooks in the 3, following it out with Williams in the 4. Coming out of the gate, looking hot, we've got our next rack of novice riders. Ethan O'Neill, Kelly Jackson, Colton O'Neill, and Joseph Johnson. Sitting on the number 1 spot, I think it's one of the O'Neill brothers. Looks like it's going to be the 822 of Ethan on the number 1. Joseph's right there on the 2. We've got another O'Neill on the 3. Kelly's on the 4 spot right now as they come out of that last turn. We're looking like Ethan O'Neill on the 1, Joseph Johnson, Colton O'Neill, and Kelly Jackson. Alrighty, guys, give a hand. Jackson Hunter's back up. He took a fall. Let's give him a hand, guys. All right, turning the page, intermediates. Breck Romer, Tevin Johnson, Hayden Williams, Jasper Allen Brooks out of turn number 2. Brooks is in the 1 spot right now, followed by Johnson, Romer, and Williams. They are pushing, battling, looking strong and fast as they come into that last turn. Right now, it's going to be Brooks on the 1, Johnson on the 2. We're pumping it through that finish straight. Romer on the 3 spot and Williams in the 4. Moving on, next rack, we've got a mixed up group here. We've got from 7-year-old experts all the way up to 9-year-old girl experts. It's a mix with Caleb Avendano, your 8-year-old intermediate, Finley, 7-year-old expert, Ella Richardson, 9-year-old girl expert, and Zane Marinsky, 9-year-old intermediate. Right now I see a battle over that number 1 spot between our 9-year-old intermediate and our 7-year-old expert. Out of that last turn, looks like it's going to be Finley holding on to that number 1 spot. Zane in the 2, Caleb in the 3, and Ella in the 4. Moving on, we've got ourselves a nice mix of 2 experts, 1 intermediate on this rack right now. Liam Adams and Harrison Vanoy. Roll call, Rivas is doing it out on the number 1, but Vanoy is right on that back tire. Adams is on Vanoy's back wheel as they come down this 3rd straight. Into that last turn, it's still looking like Cole on the 1, Harrison 2, Liam 3. Pump into the line. Looks like that's how they're going to round it out for round number 1. Reminder, it's all total points racing. Every lap counts. Moving on up, we've got mixed up Parker Farrell, Tyson Allen, Sammy Susan, Van Farrell. That's going to be your 13-year-old expert of Parker Farrell in the number 1 spot. Following it around is Sammy in the 2. Van Farrell, the brother, in 3, and Tyson rounding it out as they come to that last turn. We're getting bigger. We're getting faster. I see Zippy Will coming back at me, getting that whole shot. Will Zistra in the 1. Joe Brooks, Riley Richardson, Chris Workman, Mary Pat Meany. It's all Will out on the front, but I see it's a battle on that number 2 spot. Looks like the young lugs, they may have more endurance in them, but that was a nice battle on that number 2 spot, pushing it all the way through. It's going to go Zilstra, Richardson, Brooks, Workman, and Meany. Turning the page, last moto of the first round. Aaron James, Shannon Polk, Zach Lale. As they come down this third straight, that's the order they're doing it in right now. It's going to be James on the 1, Polk on the 2, Lale doing it on the 20-inch tonight on that 3 spot. Alrighty, guys, round number 2, staging it up. Round number 2, first moto is in the gate. All right, gate drops down. Round number 2, 6 and under open. Breck Romer, Harrison Gessner, and Kyron Brooks coming out of turn number 1. This looks like Romer's got the whole shot. Gessner's on the 2. Brooks is out here, 4 years old, battling with these 5 and 6-year-olds, giving everything he's got. Love it. Coming out of turn number 2, though, it's still racking in that order. Romer, Gessner, Brooks. Out of the last turn. Looks like that's how they're still going to round it out. Total points on this open going 1 spot to Romer, 2 spot to Gessner, and 3 to Brooks. Moving on, 7, 8-year-old opens. Caleb Avendano and Finn Lee qualified out on the first round. This time we're looking to take 3 to the main event on this open. Right now it's going to be Jasper on the 1, Williams on the 2, Lale in the 3, and Gessner's on that bubble spot right now. As they come down this third straight, it's still going to go Brooks, Williams, Lale, and Gessner. Top 3 moving on to the main event for this open. 7, 8 years old. Coming back at you to the stripe. It looks like it's going Brooks, Williams, Lale, and Gessner. Great job, guys, all the way through. Next rack of open, Kelly Jackson, or Jackson Kelly, Harrison Vanoy, Miles Williams. Looks like it's going to be the 31 of Vanoy sitting out on the number 1 spot. The 156 in the 2, following it up with a 71 of Williams out of that second turn. It's going Vanoy, Jackson, and Williams. And coming back to home, it looks like it's going to go Vanoy, Kelly Williams. All right, mixed up group here. Will Zester transferred first round, so we've got Shannon Polk, Zach Lil, and Mary Pat Meany. Out of turn number one, handlebar to handlebar. Polk takes it over on that number one spot as they come into that triple into that second turn. It still looks like Polk's got it, and Lale's following in the number two, Meany in the three. We are taking top two on this one to the main. Looks like right now that's going with Polk and Lale. Moving out of opens, moving on to cruiser. Riley Richardson, Carson Gregory, and Doug Johnson. Right now it's going to be the 14-year-old expert rider, Riley Richardson, sitting on the one spot right now. Coming into that last turn, Carson Gregory, your 12-year-old intermediate on the two. And Doug Johnson, your daddy out here rocking with these teenagers all the way to the line. Give some love for these. He worked it, he held it upright. That's the way to finish. All right, itty bitties, they're dropping in right now. 5 and under right here. They're rocking into this first turn. It's going to be Jamison Johnson, Kyron Brooks in your number 2, Noah Avendano in your 3, Theo Williams in your 4, and Frank is working it right out. This little girl, those little tiny legs. As they come back at me on this third straight, it's still going to be JJ sitting on the 1, Brooks on the 2, Avendano, Williams, Lee. Let me hear lots of love for these little bitties. They're working all the way through this track. Give them lots of love, guys, as they come back to home. Those little legs are pedaling these big old bikes as fast as they can up these hills that are 3 times my size, 20 times their size. All the way back to home. That's how they're going to round it out. Johnson, Brooks, Gage dropping down. 6 and 7-year-old novices. Harrison Gessner, Collins, Lale, Ellis, Williams. Lale took the 1 spot last time. It was real close on that number 2 and 3 spot. Right now, Lale still holding on to the number 1 as he comes up and over that triple into turn number 2. Gessner's on the number 2 spot. Ellis Williams is holding on to her number 3, but she's trying everything she's got to take over. Lale still sitting on the number 1, trying to pull away. Williams is side by side on Gessner, riding it all the way into that last turn. They're going Lale. Coming out of that last turn, looks like it's going to go Lale, Gessner, Williams. Moving up to 8-year-old novices. I've got Jackson Hunter, Caden Sink, Nash Williams, Jackson Gessner. Sitting on the number 1 spot, it's going to be Nash Williams rocking it out. Give him lots of love, guys. He walked away with a Gold Cup number 2 plate last weekend at the Gold Cup Championships. He's rocking the number 1 right now as he comes into that last turn. It's going to be Sink in the number 2, Gessner on the 3. Looks like that's how they're going to round it out. Moving up to 9-year-old novice, Renee Johnson, James Foster, Miles Williams, and Cambry Brooks. Foster's rocking the number 1 right there. Following it up is Renee in that number 2 spot. Brooks in the 3, Williams in the 4. It's still all James on the number 1. Renee's rocking the 2. She's got pressure coming from Cambry on that number 3 spot out of that last turn. It looks like James is going to pull that number 1. It's still a battle on that number 2 as they're pumping through to the line. It looks like it's going to go Foster, Johnson, Brooks, Williams. Moving on, our last rack of novices. The O'Neill brothers, they're out in front right now. Looks like it's going to be Colton on the number 1. I apologize. That's Ethan coming back at me on the number 1. Colton on the number 2. Joseph Johnson on that number 3 spot. And Kelly Jackson on the number 4. As they come down to that finish line, it looks like it's going O'Neill, Johnson, and Kelly. Reminder, it's total points, so every lap counts, every lap matters. Moving into our first round of intermediates. I see our 7-year-old intermediates out on the number 1 spot. Right now it's going to be 7-year-old Jasper, Tevin, 5-year-old Brooks, followed by 5-year-old Breck, followed by 5-year-old Aiden out here working with these 7-year-olds. As they come out of that last turn, that's how they're going to come back at you to the line right now. Brooks, Johnson, Romer, Williams. Moving on up, 8 and 9-year-olds with a 7-year-old mixed in right there. It's going to be the 9-year-old of Zane on the number 1 spot. Finn is on that number 2, your 7-year-old expert. Ella's sitting on your number 3, Caleb in your number 4. This one came down to that finish line. Last time I see Zane sitting and rocking it in the 1. Finn again in the number 2. Ella's trying to close in on him with Caleb right there on her back wheel out of that last turn. It's still Zane on the 1, but Finn's pumping and charging on him all the way to the line. It's going to go Zane, Finnegan, Ella, Caleb. Moving on up, we've got roll call Revis, Harrison Vinoy, and Liam Adams. Out of that second turn, it's going to be Cole on the number 1 spot. Vinoy is making a charge. Adams is right there in the mix with him as they come down this third straight. It's still Cole. He's got pressure coming. Harrison takes a look back to see where Adams is. They're going to battle into that last turn. Coming out of it, it's going to be Cole on the 1. Harrison. Adams is charging on him all the way to the line. It's going to go Cole, Harrison, Liam. Turning the page, we've got these bikes are burning up this track right now with Parker Farrell in the number 1, Sammy Susan in the number 2, Van Farrell in that 3, and Tyson. Coming back at you to the stripe. That's how they're going to round it out for this rack. Farrell, Susan, Farrell, Allen. Moving on up, getting a whole lot bigger and a whole lot faster. It's going to be Zippy Will doing it on the gold wheels on the number 1 spot. Riley Richardson, Joe Brooks, Chris Workman, Mary Pat Meany. Out of the last turn, it's going to be Will, Riley, Joe, Chris, and Mary Pat. Make sure you give that mama some love as she battled all the way with these guys, these dads, and these teenagers. Make sure to give her some cheers as she comes to that line. Our last rack of the second round. Polk, James, it's a battle for that number 1 spot. Out of turn number 2. Polk has got it this time. James is right there with him. Lale's on that number 3 spot trying to reel them both in. And they're going to come into that last turn looking almost handlebar to handlebar. James is going to take the inside. Coming back, pumping it through. Looks like James is going to take over that 1. Polk in the 2. Lale in the 3. Alrighty, guys, we will take a 10-minute break. 10-minute break if you need something from concessions. Grab a drink, grab a snack. 10 minutes, and we are back to racing for main events. All right, gate drops down. Here we go. First rack of open. Breck, Romer, Harrison, Gessner, Kyron, Brooks. Coming out of turn number 1, it's going to be Romer on the number 1 spot. Gessner takes a look back. He's holding on to his number 2, but Kyron's coming, charging on him right there into that triple. Out of that second turn, it's going Romer, Gessner, and Brooks. These kiddos are all mixed up, 5, 6, and 4 years old out here. It's going to be 5-year-old Breck Romer pulling away on the charge. 6-year-old Gessner's trying to pull him back in, but 4-year-old Kyron, he's pulling Gessner as close as he can out of that last turn. They're going main event open number 1. Romer, Gessner, Brooks. Gate slaps down 7, 8-year-old open. Caleb Avendano, Nash Williams, Jasper Brooks, Collins Lale, Ken Finnegan Lee's doing out on the number 1 spot, rocking his remix jersey right now, coming out of turn number 2. He's got the number 1, but Brooks is charging hard on him right here. Coming at me, that Lale's holding on the number 3, but he's got pressure coming behind him. It's still Finnegan on the number 1, Jasper on the 2. It looks like we're going almost 3 wide for that number 3 spot right now. Out of the last turn, it still looks like it's going to be Finnegan, Brooks, and still not going to call that number 3 spot. We're charging all the way to the line. Lee, Brooks, Avendano, Lale, and Williams is how I'm going to call it. It's up to the scorers on the final, but do not stop until the line, guys. Do not stop. All right, next round of open. Harrison Benoit sitting on the number 1 spot. Jackson Kelly on the number 2. Miles Williams rocking that number 3 right there as he's trying to pull in Jackson on that number 2, but it's all Benoit sitting on the number 1 spot. Your 9-year-old expert coming out of the last turn. Kiddo takes a look back. He's got room. Jackson still charging, and Williams is right there behind him. Moving on, we've got Will Zistra, Shannon Polk, Zach Lale on this last rack of open right now. Coming at me, it's going to be Zippy Will on those gold wheels. You can't miss them from a mile away. Airing it out for you, that's your 15-year-old expert, Will. Shannon's on the number 2, and Zach's rocking that 20-inch tonight on the number 3. Turn, and here we go, cruisers. Teenagers and daddy right out here. Out of turn number 1, whole shots going Riley Richardson. Carson Gregory's making his charge, and Doug Johnson's giving everything he's got with those legs out of that turn number 2. It's still going to be Richardson on the 1, Gregory on the 2, Johnson on your 3. All right, let them hear you give that love as they come into that finish line all the way to the stripe. It's going to go Richardson, Gregory, Johnson. Five and under novice. J.J. Johnson, Kyron Brooks, Noah Avendano, and Theo Williams. It looks like Kyron's going to take that inside line. He's looking over at JJ. JJ takes over that number 1 spot as they charge up these big old hills into that turn number 2. It's still going to be JJ on the 1. Kyron on the number 2. Avendano on that 3. And Theo on the 4. Right now it's still JJ rocking it out. Crazy Kyron's trying to pull him in. 2 snacks. Noah, if I remember his nickname right. is on that number 3 spot, and the Theo in the number 4. As they round that last turn, pumping it to that line. Kyron's trying to make a charge on JJ right now, all the way to the line. That's why we always give it all we got, all the way to the line. Looks like it was going to go JJ, Kyron, Noah, Theo. Again, scorers have final say. Whatever they say goes. Moving on, we've got our next rack of novices, 7 and 8-year-old. Collins Lale sitting on the number 1 spot. Harrison Gessner on the number 2. And Ellis Williams on the number 3. I mentioned her brother earned a Gold Cup plate last week, and guess what? Miss Ella earned herself a Gold Cup plate as well in that 7-year-old novice group. Make sure you guys give her lots of love as they come out of this last turn to home. It still looks like it's going to go round and out in this order, all 3 laps. Lale, Gessner, Williams. Moving on, 8-year-old novices, Nash Williams, sitting it in the number 1 spot. Those gold wheels are going to match nicely with that gold plate that he's going to be rocking. Following it in that number 2 spot is Caden Sink. He's trying to make a charge on Williams right now. Gessner's on the number 3, and I'm so happy to see Jackson back out here. He took a fall last time, so make sure we get lots of love, guys. Let me hear it. All right, turning and burning to home. It still looks like it's going to go Williams, Sink, Gessner, and Hunter. All right, 9-year-old novices. I saw the whole shot going that time to Renee Johnson. Looks like James Foster is going to take over the lead, but that whole shot went Renee. She drops to the number 2 spot now. Brooks is on her back wheel, charging at her on that number 3. It's going to be Miles on that 4 spot. Out of the last turn. Coming back to the stripe. It looks like it's going Foster. Johnson's got some pressure coming from Brooks. Round all the way to the line. It's going Foster, Johnson, Brooks, Williams. Coming out of the last rack of our novices, it's going to be Ethan O'Neill sitting in the number 1 spot. He's held the first 2 laps. It's total points. He keeps it up right here. He's pulling it in that number 1 spot for the night. Right now he's got it. Following closely, though, is his brother in Colton in the number 2 spot. Joseph's in the number 3. And the line looks like that's how they're going to round it. Moving on, our first rack of intermediates. They're charging hard. 2 7-year-olds. It looks like it's going to be Brooks. He's led the first 2. I believe he looks like he's running on the number 2 spot is going to go to Evan Johnson. Romer's got some charge coming from Williams on that number 4 spot. Right now it's going to be Brooks on the 1. Johnson on the 2. Romer, Williams. Coming back to the stripes. I see Brooks. He's got charge coming from Johnson, but it's still Brooks on the 1. Romer's charging on Johnson. Williams is rounding it out for that rack. So it's going Brooks, Johnson, Romer, and Williams. All right, it's total points racing right here. 1 round went to Finnegan Lee. The 2nd round went to Zane. So who's going to take this one? Total points racing. It all matters. Every single lap counts. Every single move. Here we go. Finnegan's got the number 1 right now. Zane's on his back hip pocket right there. Ella's in the 3. Caleb's in the 4. As they come out of that last turn, it's going Finn, Zane, Ella. She's got some charge coming right on her from Caleb, though, right now, rocking that brand new bike. It's so bright you won't miss it. Looks like Ella hold on for the number 3. Followed it up is Caleb. Let's go. Oh, nice move by Adams, trying to take that inside line, pushing Benoit up high. I've got all number 1 spot of Roll Cole Rivas, so he's getting some charge right now. Benoit's got the inside line. He tries to shut the door on that. He does. He shuts it down. Benoit takes the inside on that turn. They're coming to the home stripe right there. It's going to go Cole, Benoit. Adams is making his charge on him right now all the way to the line. Revis, Benoit, Adams. Next rack at me, it's going to be Farrell, Susan, Allen. Parker's got the number 1 spot right now. Sammy's on that number 2. Van's really close on Sammy right there on that number 3 spot. Tyson's following in tight with them all as they round out of that last turn. They're coming back at you. Farrell, Susan, Farrell, Allen. All right, I see Zippy Will. Joe Brooks is making the charge on Riley right now. He's trying to say I may be old, but I'm going to try everything I got. Riley tries to take the inside line. We've got about 30 years difference on these two cats. But it's all Will on the number 1 spot, but it's going to be a battle for this number 2. Last time Wiz is right about where Joe died out. Oh, man, I was hoping to see it all the way to the line, but I love the charge for it. It's going to go Will, Riley. Give a hand to Joe, guys. He held tight with that 14-year-old. Mary Pat, and Mr. Chris Workman. Coming back at me, last rack of the night. Aaron James, Shannon Polk, Zach Little. It's going to be James sitting on the number 1 right there. Polk takes a look back. He's got that number 2. He was trying to find out how much space he's got. He better not shut it down. All right, there we go. James, Polk, Leo. All righty, guys. Thank you so much for coming out. We will be open on Wednesday for practice, weather depending. Looks like we've got a whole lot of rain coming, so be sure to check social media, find out for sure if we are open on Wednesday night. Again, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your weekend.